sunshine. Can't you just feel the moonshine? Ain't it just like a friend of mine to hit me from behind? Yes, I'm gone to Carolina in my mind. Gone to Carolina in my mind.
So as the James Taylor song that you just heard, we want you to come along with us and listen to what we have to tell you about going to Carolina on our mind. So my name is Larry Netzer. I'm representing the Social Events Planning Club. So welcome to our storytelling event of I Love North Carolina. It's hosted by our Social Events Planning Club, and a special thanks to our co-leaders, Jan Starnowski, and also Janet Elmo, who couldn't be here today. So a couple other housekeeping things. We have Paul Hesse, who's going to be videotaping this and be putting it on our YouTube channel, and we'll send out email for those that missed it for you later. So come along with us. So when our Social Events Planning Club came up with hosting this event, our goal was to create a series of different programs and events for you to discover more about North Carolina. We wanted to be able to find things locally for you to discover with you and your spouse, maybe your grandkids. Oh, and the kids could come along too. And things maybe at the coast for later on. You could go with another couple and rent Airbnb and discover all the things that we can try and provide for you, or even in the mountains. So that's our goal. So for our speakers' information, Carolina Arbors has about 2,000 people here that live in 1,100 homes. But they are mainly residents that weren't born and raised here, but moved here. So with just a show of hands, how many of you are Carolina to the core, that you've been born and raised here? Wow, more than I thought. How about those that have been here 30 years or more? Well, there you go. So we do have some people that can say, I love North Carolina. But, we have more than 100 clubs, and that includes clubs where some of the residents came from. We have the New York Club, and they talk a lot about what's going on in New York. And we even have a club called the Yinzer Club. So I don't know if you know what a Yinzer is, but those people talk about Pittsburgh a lot because that's what they love. Anyway, our idea wasn't to focus on a program to reward loyalties with their love of where they came from, but our program is, as I think of it, a way to discover a new friend, even those people that have been around a while. And in order to discover more about your friend, you have to know things that you've never known about that person before. And that's our goal, is to have you create and discover new ways for things to do and places to go immediately in the mountains, on the coast. And so eventually you can find things when people come to visit you, or like we said, take all your loved ones with you. And then with the end of our series, we hope you can say, I love North Carolina too. So come on along with us and embrace and discover more about our state. So stick around at the end after our guest speaker and save all your questions, because we'll have Q&A, question and answer after that. But we've got a number of takeaways and giveaways for you later on. So now on to our guest speaker. I'm happy to introduce Amy Pasquini, but I have to tell her that, if you can go to page 2. Yep. Have to tell you that, if you search the internet, you can find all kinds of pictures and things. And I found that one on you. And so I put it up, not to embarrass you, but so we can say, don't know the story, but we can maybe find out more about you. So, Amy is currently the Travel and Events Director of Our State magazine. I'm sure we all heard about that. She's been with the company for 26 years. She was an executive producer of content for the TV show Our State, a 17-time Emmy Award-winning television show produced by Our State and PBS North Carolina. Amy's worked as a marketing director, consulting for advertising sales representative, and has written many articles for the magazine throughout her time with it. She was born in Atlanta, and she grew up here in North Carolina. She obtained a Bachelor's of Arts in Journalism from Georgia State University, and she's brought her husband, John, with us too. And they both currently live in Kernsville, North Carolina. She wrote that she enjoys sampling pimento cheese recipes from across the state. So can you get your pimento cheese recipes out and we can get it to her later? I'm sure everybody brought one today. And I searched in Kernsville's nearest tourist attractions for what's lots of stories to tell, and I found that there's the Old Salem Museum and Gardens in Winston-Salem. I'm not sure if she has time to tell us about that, but that's something for us to discover too. So let's give a hand for Miss Amy.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you very much. I've had a wonderful morning so far with everybody, getting to know people just a little bit. So I appreciate you having me and wanting interest in finding out about North Carolina and Our State magazine. My name is Amy Jo Pasquini, and I grew up in High Point, North Carolina, which is a small town in the center of the state where I spent most of my time figuring out how I was going to get out of there. Nobody wants to grow up and stay in their same old small town, so I studied theater and dancing and acting, and immediately after high school, I hightailed it to New York City, where I vowed never to step foot in North Carolina again. Well, after about 4 years of waiting tables, I came up with Plan B. And I went to school at Georgia State University, graduated in journalism, and then I started circling North Carolina until I ended up not only back in North Carolina, but back in High Point, where my mama still lives. And I got a job with Our State magazine, so I get to spend all day, every day, touting the virtues of North Carolina. Luckily, I appreciate irony, but more than that, I appreciate this state. What was I thinking? We have a glorious state, and obviously you all have come here to discover and enjoy it. I'm going to tell you a little history about Our State magazine. Our State magazine was started in 1933 by a man named Carl Gertsch. Mr. Gertsch was from Tarrytown, New York. A lot of New York connections. Tarrytown, New York. And he moved to Raleigh, where he fell in love with this state. Mr. Gertsch did so many things. He was a reader at the state legislature back when they read the laws before they voted on them. He had a radio show on WPTF, We Protect the Family, Durham Life Insurance. So he knew all about this state. And he was a character beyond character. He would fly his airplane up and down the coast and zoom down and scare farmers to death and zoom back down. He had a reputation. He loved doing that. And one day a little girl came home and said, Mommy, I got a ride in Mr. Gertsch's airplane. She said, don't do that. And she said, but he gave me a subscription to the state magazine. She said, well, all right then. So that was our Mr. Gertsch. He had the magazine for several decades, and he sold it. When he sold the magazine, it had 23,000 paid subscribers. Not bad. Fast forward to today. We currently have 189,000 paid subscribers, which translates into nearly 1 million readers across the globe. We have subscribers in every state in this country and 19 foreign countries. So we have a lot of people who read the magazine. As Larry mentioned, I brought magazines, hopefully for everybody, and you can discover it for yourself. In addition to the magazine, we have a tremendous digital presence. You are welcome to visit ourstate.com. Lots of story and travel ideas on the website. And also fascinating archives. With the State Library, we have archived every issue of the magazine since 1933. So if you're looking for a rabbit hole, pack a bag. You can go and you can look in like 1948, what was happening in North Carolina. And it's fascinating reading, not just the stories, but the advertising, because you'll see ads for cigarettes. Doctors recommend Camels. I mean, I'm not kidding, that exists exactly like that. So you will see, yes, true, you will see the progress of North Carolina and, America actually, but a lot of North Carolina as it is reflected in our state. Larry mentioned we also have a television show. We're on hiatus right now, but we're working on another season. It's on PBS-NC. You can actually go to their website and see the stories. But we also have a travel division, and that is what I currently do. We do trips all around North Carolina, all over America, and internationally. So I'm going to tell you about a few of my favorite places and how to find out more. And so y'all ready to go? Let's go. Let's head out to Manteo. Who's been out there? Where? Manteo. That's out in the northeast, corner of the state, almost on the coast. You've heard of the Outer Banks. So you go all the way to the last bridge before you get to the beach and turn left, and you'll be in Manteo. Manteo is where the lost colony, more or less, was located. Every street in the village is named after one of the original colonists. But the village is filled with beautiful little cottage. The gray cottage with the pink roses trailing up the side, or the white cottage with the red rocking chairs on top. And you start getting near the water, and you can see all the boats that are tied up to the docks. And you can even hear the clink, clink, clink of the docks, of the boats on the docks. And it's a beautiful waterfront village. There are coffee shops, independent bookstores, art galleries galore, dining. One of the art galleries that I went into several years back, I walked in and it was filled with abstract watercolors. I had to get closer because there were sayings in the watercolors. And one of them said, "Worry is a misuse of imagination." I said, wait a minute, that's good. Worry is a misuse of imagination. Now, you should try telling yourself that at 3 a.m. Doesn't quite work, but it's a good thing. It's a mantra to have. But I got closer and I asked the clerk, I said, is this a local artist? It said D. Hershey. She said, well, she lives here part-time. I said, well, she goes, Donna Hershey. Oh, okay. And she goes, oh, you know, of the Pennsylvania Hershey's. I said, oh. Still didn't know, but that's the kind of thing you're going to find out when you read our state magazine. As our editor Elizabeth Hudson says, we write stories about the things you didn't know you wanted to Google. So that's her mission. People often ask, how do you get your story ideas? And we get our story ideas from our editor, Elizabeth Hudson. She is out traveling the state at all times. We have freelance writers who write for us, same thing, looking for stories. But we have people in communities that send us ideas because there may be something happening here that we would not necessarily know about that might make a good story. So people email ideas all the time. Once we put of course we have a Facebook page, we put a question out on Facebook and said, tell us your favorite breakfast places. In about 5 minutes, we had, I think it was 447 breakfast joints. So we culled it down, and we actually ended up doing an entire magazine on breakfast places. People often will take the magazine, put it in their glove compartment, and use it to find things across this state. I highly recommend looking at your Our State. And again, ourstate.com. Okay, let's head down from Manio. There's a lot of things to do up there. The Outer Banks, Kill Devil Hills, the Wright Brothers Memorial. These are some classic, iconic spots. And of course, Ocracoke Island, absolutely fascinating. It is an island. You can take a ferry over to Harker's Island, and it just goes on. Then Beaufort, one of my favorite places, and etc. But we're going to go all the way down to the Brunswick County island or beaches. And we're going to Southport. Who's been to Southport? Oh, good. Y'all traveling folks. Southport is the kind of town, when you drive in, they've got the big live oaks with Spanish moss hanging down. Now, these cottages in Southport are bigger. They have enormous front porches, big enough for an entire set of wicker furniture. They also, most of them have a North Carolina flag and an American flag on their front porch. And in summertime, the prettiest geraniums you've ever seen. I don't know what they do. They are red geraniums on all these porches. And it's a great place to wander around. Lots of shopping, lots of places to eat. One of my favorites is Provisions Company. I'm sure if you've been to Southport, you've been to Provisions. Yes. It's on the water, very casual, beyond casual. They have a cooler, you just open it up, get you a beer, and go sit outside. I mean, it is so good. One of my favorite things there are the conch fritters. So you order those, and it comes with a delicious sauce for dipping. Our state did an issue years ago, 100 foods in 100 counties. And in Brunswick County, we focused on the conch fritters. Well, shortly after that issue came out, I was in Southport, so I went to Provisions, and I told the lady behind the counter, I said, "Oh, did you see that article about you all in Our State magazine? I work there." She said, "Oh, you're the one." I said, well, it was a really nice article. She said, "Do you know, after that article ran about those conch fritters and the sauce, I have to come to work an hour early to make enough sauce for all the people coming in here and ordering." I said, "Oh, well, have a nice day," and just went and sat down. But it's a great place to eat. And Our State magazine, I think you see a theme developing here. We like to eat. But Southport's so interesting. They have a maritime museum. And they used to have I think maybe they still do, a golf cart tour. They have tours all the time that will take you around to see the various movie locations. And Under the Dome, the Stephen King television series, and then, of course, there is a Nicholas Sparks, that name escapes me right now, movie film there. And it's a wonderful way to see the town, just a golf cart. And they'll go by the Robert Rourke Bed and Breakfast. That is a wonderful place to stay. It's one of the few bed and breakfasts that have a bedroom on the first floor, so you don't have to take the stairs. I investigated that one time. I was going to take my mother, and we found that out. Robert Rourke was a prolific newspaper person and writer, novels, back in Hemingway's time. And a matter of fact, he was friends with Ernest Hemingway. Now, the story goes that Ernest Hemingway and Robert Rourke came to stay. It was his grandmother's house, by the way, this B&B. Came to stay at his grandmother's house, and they went out on the town and had a big old time, as you would imagine Ernest Hemingway would do. And they got home. They didn't bother going in. They just plopped down on the grass, fell asleep in the front yard. Well, the neighbor lady woke up the next morning and said, "Oh, Robert Rourke and Ernest Hemingway are dead." That went around that town like wildfire. It was so bad, they had to run an article the next day in the newspaper. Contrary to popular rumor, Robert Rourke and Ernest Hemingway are not dead. They were just dead drunk last night. Who knows? But that's the kind of stories you're going to hear on these super fun golf cart tours they have. All kind of local insights, and it's a great place to visit. Highly recommend it. Okay, let's just, one more tidbit at the beach while we're there. Has anybody been to Bald Head Island? Now that is a little different. You have to take a ferry. There are no cars, which is very nice. You can do a day trip out there. The ferry it stops near Southport, and you can rent a golf cart there or bicycle, which is absolutely delightful. They have a turtle rescue center. They have a really neat little lighthouse, and you can just ride around, and they have beautiful homes there. You can rent them, or you can just look at them and say, oh, I bet that's expensive. But it's a beautiful place to visit. And they also have restaurants, and it's a great little day trip. If you're in the Southport area anyway, just get on a ferry, go out to Bald Head for a few hours, stroll around, and come back. But it is a great place to visit. I would highly recommend that one as well. All right, let's head inland. Let's go to Pinehurst. Who has been to Pinehurst? Pinehurst is not too far from here. It's in the center of the state. There's Pinehurst, Southern Pines, and Aberdeen. You know that Pinehurst is famous for golf. We know that for sure. Enormous golf center. But it's also famous because Annie Oakley, you remember Annie Oakley in the Wild Bill Buffalo show back long ago? She actually lived there for about 6 years. And if you want to see the history of Annie Oakley there, go into the Pinehurst Hotel. It's the big white hotel with the wraparound porch. And if you walk the halls, you will see many portraits, of course, of golfers, but you will also get the history of Annie Oakley when she lived there. Fascinating that she lived there. But she did because Pinehurst and Southern Pines are renowned for their equestrian tradition. There are a lot of horses in that area, and there's all kind of horsing events and parties and galas. If you're into horse equestrian, you can go there and find that out. Another wonderful thing about Pinehurst is the Tufts Museum in their public library. You can read, find out all about the beginnings of golf. And you may already know that William Law Olmsted designed the town of Pinehurst. And you know, he did, Central Park and lots of places around America. And he did Pinehurst as well. Now, while you're in Pinehurst, you might as well go over to Southern Pines, because in Southern Pines is the Weymouth Center for the Arts, and that is where the North Carolina Writers Hall of Fame is located. I believe it's on the second floor, unless they've redone it lately, and anybody can come in, but check before you go, and you can see all the different writers from North Carolina. North Carolina has a huge number of writers. A lot live here, but in Hillsborough, if you want to go see where the writers live, it's Hillsborough. But that's in Southern Pines. Also, great shopping, great food in Southern Pines. A lot of the people in Southern Pines are not from here, sort of like this group. Many happen to be from upstate New York, as I've been to speak to them a lot, and the Buffalo region in particular. So I asked a man one day, how did you find Southern Pines? And he said, well, I put a snow shovel on the top of my car, and I drove south until somebody said, what's that? Maybe or maybe not, who knows? So, but a lot of people live there and love it, and they have a great time. Now, right there at Pinehurst is also Seagrove. If you are interested in pottery, that is like the pottery capital of the world, I think, and it is fascinating. You can go to the actual individual potters' studios. Sometimes they have festivals where they're all open, but most of them are open quite a bit, and you can find out the schedule. You can look it up early, or you can just show up and see what you see. One of the most famous potters from North Carolina is Ben Owen. And he has a studio and a store there, and it's really interesting to see his art. His father, his grandfather were potters, and he went into it. But then he went on to school. He studied in Japan, so he got, more influence, and his pots are beautiful. He's renowned for his color, his glaze that's red. And if you see him around, I think they have some at the Olmsted Hotel. You all have probably been over there. You can see a lot of pottery and art. If you have not been, has everybody been to the Olmsted Hotel? Oh, well, let me tell you, that is a fantastic, it's just right here, little day trip. The hotel is filled with art from all over, but a lot of North Carolina art, but they have a Chihuly chandelier when you walk in. And you're allowed just to walk in and look around, but I invite you to eat at Heron's and have a delicious lunch. If you don't want to get involved with that much lunch, you can sit at the bar and they have great little light bites. And it's a beautiful place just to go see. And so I invite you to discover the Olmsted. And of course, you know about La Farm Bakery right here. Oh, yeah. There's what are they, the sandwiches with the cheese and the cheese on top. Delish. All right. Okay, so let's leave this area. Let's leave Southern Pines. And I believe you asked about Old Salem. Anybody been to Old Salem? Yay! Old Salem is a restored Moravian village in Winston-Salem. And you can visit, they have several of the homes open, or like the Single Brothers House, which is where single men lived to study and to develop their craft and just where they lived. And they have the Single Sisters home, same thing, you can visit that. One thing about Old Salem and the Moravians, it's a Moravian village, they believed in education from the beginning. The women were educated. And we're talking about, 1800s, late 1700s when they came. So that was quite progressive for the time. They also love music. And they have a lot of music programs there. And they have a huge organ. If you go in the visitor center to get your tickets and to look around, they have a really big organ and often will have organ concerts there. And in Old Salem, you wander around. It's a great place to visit. Go to the bakery, get your sugar bread, fabulous. But please treat yourself to the Home Moravian Church. It is not always open, but it's open a lot. But behind there is the cemetery, and it's called God's Acres. You can wander around there. It's beautiful. It's kind of rolling hills, and every tombstone is the same, a rectangular tombstone. And it doesn't matter when you were born or who you are, it's all the same. And as it's been explained to me, the Moravians believe that all people are created equal in the sight of God, and that's why they have that tradition. Now, there's a cemetery next door that has a little bit different tradition. They believe in mausoleums. They believe in ornate tombstones. My mother and I were there visiting one day, and we were reading this oversized tombstone about this man. He's the president, vice president, money, did this, did that, on and on and on and on. We got to the end, and we just looked over, and there was a little tombstone that was his wife's. And it said, she did the best she could. We said, you gotta be kidding. And then we thought, well, married to that thing, I reckon. So we started laughing, meant no disrespect. But here comes the cemetery caretaker, points to the exit. We were like, exactly. That made my mother laugh even harder. Now, my mother is not one to get called down. But she started laughing, and he said, ladies, this is sacred ground. We knew that. We meant no disrespect. But he pointed again. So we left. I'm not saying we got thrown out of the cemetery, but we did leave. But we were left with one of our favorite memories, having such a good time. And I just have to say, if you're looking for somewhere to go, get your Our State magazine out and see what we recommend. What did Elizabeth say? We write stories on places you didn't even know you wanted to Google. So enjoy when you start traveling around the state. I put together a little itinerary for you all, especially. The magazine is located in Greensboro. People often wonder where we're located. And so we're in Greensboro. We have a staff of about 47 people, a lot of editorial and writers. We have salespeople, sell the advertising, of course. And we have a circulation department in-house. We are not a call center, in Iowa. We are right there. So if you have a problem, you can call. And then you say, and tell Amy I said hello, and then I'll get the message. And one time, the owner of the magazine, the publisher, he went and told people, we actually have someone who answers the phone We do not have that, your call is important to us. We don't have that message. I mean, your call is important to us. He hires a person to answer the phone and the circulation, and that's very different. But our state magazine is very different. I'm just going to go on a tangent here. We are about what is positive in this state. We have never, and we have no plans to take political advertising. You can imagine the people wanting to advertise it, but we do not take political advertising. It is all positive stories, how North Carolina is moving forward, and the history and the scenic beauty. So I find that very refreshing, which is one of the reasons I've been there for 27 years. We're always finding out good things about North Carolina. I recommend you visit Greensboro, North Carolina, where the magazine's located. I put together a little day trip itinerary for you, and it's under the cloth, soon to be revealed, but I'll tell you about it right now. Greensboro in a day. Start off downtown. The Greensboro International Civil Rights Museum and Center. It is housed in the old Woolworths building where back in February, I forgot the year, but in the 60s, where 4 young men, African Americans from A&T University, sat down at the counter where they were not allowed and said, please serve us. And it really ignited, it helped propel the civil rights movement. If you go there, they have a lot of displays, but you will need an appointment, and especially if you want a staff-led tour. So please check it out before you go. Don't go and show up. Sometimes you can just do tours like that, but you need to check it out. Now, after that, you shop. There are a lot of shops, a lot of artisan shops and galleries, but then you're going to want to have lunch, and I've got a couple for you. There's one called Crafted, the art of the taco. And it is delicious. And it's the kind of place where, like, the big long tables, a lot of people sit together. Yes, they have tacos, but they have other things that are just fabulous. And it's locally owned. It's on Elm Street. All of these things are on Elm Street. Another place is Natty Green's. Now, Natty Green's was one of the original breweries, and it's still there, and they celebrate Greensboro. They have a wonderful outdoor patio, and it's on Elm Street, so you can go there. Now, if you happen to be staying for dinner, go to Blue Denim. It is Southern Creole Cajun food, but it is a nod to the denim, the cone mills, and the denim that was made in Greensboro. That's why they call it Blue Denim. And they happen to say that they are located in Jeansboro. So, there's a lot of history and sort of nods to the history all on that one street. Now, if you have the afternoon, please go to the Natural Science Center. Now, it is for children and grandchildren, but it's for everybody that's interested in science and animals. They have a whole, like a marine kind of center where they have penguins and sharks and all sorts of interesting things. They have outdoor enclosures that are nice for tigers, and they have all kind of animals and things. They have a planetarium. They also have a carousel, a beautiful carousel in the tradition of the old carousels, and all the different rides on the carousel reflect a part of Greensboro. So I would invite you to go to the carousel. The owner of our state, he actually started the carousel movement to get a carousel 20 years ago. So it's beautiful. So that's Greensboro. I invite you, please come visit. Let's go on up towards the mountains. I've got a couple of mountain towns and then a couple more stories. Okay, how about we go to Lake Lure, Hendersonville, Chimney Rock, and Flat Rock. And we imagine this, have a trip coming up in July 20th through the 23rd. This is a beautiful area to visit. Lake Lure is where some of Dirty Dancing was filmed. Currently, Lake Lure, there's beautiful homes all around the lake. You can do a pontoon boat ride through the lake. They have a very interesting bridge, flower garden. The 1927 Lake Lure Inn, historic inn, is beautiful. In the lobby, it's filled with music boxes. And I don't mean little music boxes that sit on a dresser. I'm talking the big music boxes with those big, discs that play, and they're antiques. They'll tell you all about them. So that's Lake Lure. And if you go with us, we have behind the scenes access to everything. One time, my husband, John, who's here with me today, and I were going to take an anniversary trip to this area. So we were walking, headed towards Lake Lure, and we kept seeing these people sort of in the air and then fall down in the water. We said, what are they doing, a baptism? What are they doing here? As it turns out, we were there on the day for the Dirty Dancing Festival. Now, if you think back to the movie, there is a moment where the main character lifts up baby over his head, but they do it in the water, so when she falls, she doesn't get hurt. These people are recreating that scene, sort of. But they have this every year there. And then also we came to this one other area where they were kind of dancing around to some music, and they made an announcement, and they said, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to learn the original choreography to Time of Your Life. And this one lady said, yay! And she put her hands up in the air. I have never in my life seen such pure joy. I have since found out people who like Dirty Dancing, the movie, love Dirty Dancing, the movie. We have people internationally come to Lake Lure to see the Dirty Dancing Festival. They are serious, I am telling you. And it's fun, but that's not why we go. But we have a good time. And then we go up to Chimney Rock with a raptor presentation. This year we're going to the Flat Rock Playhouse, which is North Carolina's playhouse. And when we go, they happen to be doing a chorus line. And they do a fantastic job. I've seen a lot of shows there. They use equity actors. It's really fantastic. And then we will be going to Hendersonville and have a tour there. So I invite you to come with us or go on your own. There's so many things. All right, let's head over to Biltmore. Who's been to the Biltmore? Oh, I think when you move to North Carolina, they give you tickets immediately. Get to the Biltmore. Obviously, it seems like it's gone. Christmas at Biltmore. We do a Christmas at Biltmore trip, of course, but spring at Biltmore is fantastic because you get to get out in the gardens and get the fresh air. And one time I was there and I did a tour. It's called the Legacy of the Land Tour. And I heard this story that I'm going to tell you. First of all, you know that George Vanderbilt built the Biltmore House. He built it as a bachelor pad in the mountains. And he and his mother used to come every summer, fresh air, to get out of the city and enjoy the Asheville area. And he started buying up plots of land, Till next thing you know, he owns thousands of plots of land. And he invites William Law Olmsted to come and do the grounds for Biltmore. Well, lo and behold, they were putting in an approach road because you cannot have a driveway to Biltmore. You need an approach road to appreciate that you're getting ready to have a time of your life. And so there was a farmer who would not sell his farm. Right where they needed it. Mr. Vanderbilt said, go see how much he wants. Everybody has their price. I need to tell you, land was going for about $100 an acre at that time. So the associate said, Mr. Farmer, how much do you want for your land? And he reared back and he said, $700 an acre. He said, are you sure? Yes. So off he goes to tell Mr. Vanderbilt. And he said, Mr. Vanderbilt, he wants $700 an acre. And Mr. Vanderbilt sort of leaned back and said, give it to him. So off they went. Well, interestingly enough, the farmer had to move off that plot, but he didn't have to move away because they hired him as a caretaker. So he got the best. He got the money and he got to keep his job, probably easier. So he stayed there, and a few years later, he went to Mr. Vanderbilt and he said, you know all that money you paid me for my land? And Mr. Vanderbilt said, well, yes, I do. He kind of reared back again. He said, I'd have taken less. Mr. Vanderbilt sort of did the same thing and said, I'd have paid more. Who knows? That's the kind of story you're going to hear when you take that Legacy of the Land tour. It is a wonderful behind the scenes of the land. The house is fantastic, but the land, it's got its own stories. One of the things I love about this state is the food. We have such a bounty of different foods. After this today, we're going to go eat at the Salt Box Seafood Joint. Have y'all been there? It's in Durham. It's run by Chef Ricky Moore, who just recently won a James Beard Award for the best chef in the Southeast. Now, that's saying something. So it's right here in your backyard, and it is fish prepared in an old way. Well, it's a new way at this point. But anyway, his creations, he's fabulous. Salt Box Seafood Joint. And so that's right here in Durham. And many, many other great restaurants here, of course. Salt Box Seafood Joint, yeah. But don't let us get there first. No, I'm just kidding. We're going right after. And so, but it's a great place. I know him. He's a great guy. But one of the things I love is the first homegrown tomato sandwich of the season. Now, y'all know you're not supposed to eat tomatoes you buy in a store, right? Y'all got that memo early on? Somebody's growing tomatoes and will give you some. Or you can buy them at the farmer's market, but probably somebody's growing them. And you're going to have one right on your counter. And we are going to go over how to make a tomato sandwich so we don't forget. Are you ready? All right, so there's that plump, red, ripe, juicy tomato on your counter. And you're going to come home, you're probably by yourself, but you're going to be struck with desire for a tomato sandwich. So you're going to pull the bread out. What kind of bread? White bread. Somebody knows you got to have white bread. Stick to the roof of your mouth, fresh white bread. And then you're going to take it out, you're going to slather it up with what? Mayonnaise. Y'all have learned early on, yes, you got to have the style, brand you want. And then you're going to cut that tomato, and it's still warm, almost like you can feel the sun. And you're going to put those big slices, juicy, what do you got? Salt and pepper, don't tell your doctor, use all you want. And then we're going to take another piece of white bread on that sandwich, and I'm going to take the first bite. Where am I standing? Over the sink, that's right, because that tomato is so juicy. It'll run down your cheek all the way down your elbows till you have got a wonderful tomato sandwich experience going on. Unfortunately, that's the best tomato sandwich you're going to have all season, that first homegrown. But those tomatoes, they're going to keep coming and coming. You will come to your meeting here, and it'll be September, and Larry will say, I got a sack of tomatoes for you before you go. Don't leave. Because the tomatoes are so prolific. They just keep coming, which we appreciate. But then it's time for pumpkins, and it's time to go up to Hendersonville and pick apples, or just go to the farmer's market. And if you're super lucky, you can get persimmons and have persimmon pudding. If you don't know what that is, you can see me after. I'll tell you. But North Carolina, we are so blessed with a bounty of food and wonderful places to go. But the best part of this state, the people. Yes, clap, give yourselves a hand. I meet so many people, and like you folks, people who are positive, engaged with their community, very giving, generous people. And so I just want to thank you on behalf of Our State Magazine for being who you are and for being here with us today. And I'm going to close by singing a song, if you can imagine such a thing. A lady, which I usually can't, a lady sent me, it looked like a poem. And she said, sing this to the hymn of just a closer walk with thee. And it's a song about butter beans. We love our food. So I am going to finish with the butter bean song, and I will need your help. I'll give you the word when you're ready. Okay, y'all ready? All right. Just a bowl of butter beans. Pass the cornbread, if you please. I don't want no collard greens. All I want are butter beans. Well, that's pretty good. Second verse. See that woman over there, the ones with hands up in the air. She's not pregnant as she seems. She's just full of butter beans. Nice. Thank you. One more verse, last verse. When they lay me down to rest, don't place a rose upon my breast. I don't want no evergreens. All I want are butter beans. Bravo! Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. I think Larry has a few more tidbits for us.
Thank you so much, Miss Amy. We appreciate your stories. Better yet, we appreciate her invitation to a number of different places that she's turned on to us with her list. So we couldn't be remiss with providing our own list. So I know that's a lot to look at and a lot to share, but we put together a list of fun places to visit in central North Carolina to find your own story. You've heard Miss Amy's stories, and she's invited you to a number of places. So our invite to you is to search out a number of places and create your own story. Create something with you and your spouse. Go out with the grandkids and bring the kids along too, and create a story with them. Or the people that come and visit from New York, take them out and create a story. So I just want to highlight a bunch. We do have this listed up here, have a lot of copies. So even with the magazine, don't everybody take a copy for yourself. We'll leave the extras at the front desk, but take one to share and then tell your neighbors. So our first one on the list is the Whirligigs of Wilson. Who has not been at the Whirligigs of Wilson? What's the Whirligigs of Wilson? Well, I'll just tell you, what's the very best day of the week to go see the Whirligigs of Wilson? Wednesday, not Wednesday, Wednesday. And so I've created a URL link. You can't click on the paper. So my suggestion is take this home and just Google for Whirligigs of Wilson or something in the page. I want to skip down to, on your way to Wilson, there's the Country Doctor Museum in Bailey. We passed by it a number of times going to Wilson, but never stopped. But gosh, what an interesting place. They have hands-on of how that they had country doctors that used to take horse and buggy to go out and treat the local neighbors, and all the very early surgery stuff. Near there's the Tobacco Farm Life and Museum in Kenley. Has a lot of hands-on story, and it's where the advertising for bright leaf tobacco. Of course, what's bright leaf tobacco? Being a native or in the Durham area, that's what the type of tobacco that they had here in Durham. Another place out east is the Sylvan Heights Bird Park of Scotland Neck. That's a mouthful, but talk about a story there. So when you go there, and I'd suggest taking the grandkids, when you go in, you can pay a little extra for bird seed. So when we went there, I was like, well, I might as well. And then you go in a big caged-in area, and they must have 50 or so little parakeets. So I put my hand out, put a little bird seed in there. Next thing you know, I had parakeets here, on the arm, all over here. And my wife Renee was just taking pictures, and while the birds took their time just eating all the food. But they have all kinds of birds in the sanctuary there. It's a great place to create your own story. Well, right around Durham here, did you know that they have 3 walking tours all throughout the summer? They start out right away next week in April and go through November. And they're really unique stories about Durham. They start at 10 o'clock and go for 90 minutes to walk around the area. And there's things that you'll discover, like why did Durham start there? Well, Durham is where the end of the Civil War came. And so there was the Army from the North, the Army from the South. They signed the papers, and then a lot of the soldiers stuck around there and did a number of different things. They got a lot of great stories for that. There's also great stories about baseball and interesting things about how baseball was created right here in Durham. Stories like they termed the term the outfield, and just a number of things, believe it or not. And I encourage you to sign up ahead of time and take a 90-minute walking tour of Durham, and then you end up at the Durham Farmers Market. if friends come to visit, you got to take them out to historic Stagville, the plantation there. They have a lot of guided tours of the stories of how the tobacco was farmed there and started. It's just really great. Now that summer's coming along, also kayaking at the Great Bald Cypress Trees at Robertson Mill Pond Preserve. Very unique place. You can kayak among the cypress trees. May want to recommend that to one of the kids or something. Also, take the grandkids to North Carolina Aviation Museum in Asheville. Has lots of hands-on of all those different airplanes. And the thing there is you can tell the stories to the grandkids. You wouldn't believe the different airplanes, and that was kind of in my era type thing. And so that's a suggestion. Saxapaw Island Park and Trail, a very unique place. Drive out there in an afternoon and check out the general store and just a lot of different places there. So one place I found during the pandemic is that North Carolina has a number of very old covered bridges. And in fact, there's like 7. So I list a number of them. They're all within driving distance. So why would you go out and discover a covered bridge? Because they're there, and you can have an outing in the afternoon. Each one has a unique story. Like, why were they even created? Well, right after the Civil War, they wanted to pump some money into this area for the soldiers, didn't have a job, didn't want to walk around Durham. So they gave them the task of building these covered bridges. Well, you go there now, and it's just a small stream. It isn't a main river. So there's a lot of unique things to discover. Take your Facebook picture. And last but not least, I've listed going out to the New Hope Valley Railroad. So that's a railroad that starts nowhere and goes nowhere. But you can drive a train for an hour. That's a very interesting experience. Look that up. So if we go to the next page.
Your thing doesn't go there.
Yep, let me show you that. I've created a takeaway for you. We have giveaways, now a short takeaway. Our encouragement is to make your own outing, make it special. So you have to prepare for your own outing, and so I'm calling it you and your spouse to create a special date day, which comes with upgraded behavior. So this is for the wives now to tell your husbands. So what's this updated behavior? Remember way back when you went on a date? So create a date day. Pick a place on the list. Say, we're going on date day Wednesday. So we should expect that the men should open the car door for the ladies. And a lot of times, like my wife, she'll remind me when I get out, oh, my car door is broken. You'll have to come around and open it up for me. And of course, you got to hold hands and enjoy the company with each other and reminisce about when you're going to visit some unique thing. Oh, remember when we did something similar to that? And of course, you got to end up with a lunch or dinner on your date. So make it special. Put the date days on your calendar. Do a little bit of planning, as we said. And the biggest thing is you're creating your own story. So then, for family outings, we want you to create an outing, make it special, like I mentioned, the aviation museum. Go out there. And our suggestion is to control the narrative and call it a fundraiser. Not fundraiser, fundraiser. So you got to tell the grandkids, there's no fighting with your sister because this is a fundraiser. That's the rules of a fundraiser. And then you can say, well, of course, Grandpa is the leader because grandpas are always the leader in a fundraiser. Tell your own stories to the grandkids when you visit something, and just make it a very special day. Also, tell your neighbors and friends when you got out and when you come back. We went on date day Wednesday, or we had a fundraiser with the grandkids. It was great. And then post on the Carolina Arbors Forum Facebook page a picture and talk about it when you're at Fridays or 5, besides how good the food is. So that's our takeaway. And as we end, you can come up and do some of the giveaways. We've got my list. We've got Miss Amy's list. And get out there and make your own story. So we'll end with just a few questions for Miss Amy. Anybody got a quick question?
With the links?
Sure. We have that up here. Oh, well, I could send that to you if you send me an email, but you have to do a little work on Mr. Google. Just Google a list. If you can't find it, send me a note. Got a question right up here.
Wait. I can hear it.
In case people want to sign up for the magazine, do you have cards with you?
She's asking if I have cards with me to sign up for the magazine. You are welcome to subscribe, and there are subscription cards in every magazine. Or if you want to go ahead and subscribe, I'll take the card and the cash. But yeah, they're in there. You can also do it online at ourstate.com. One thing I wanted to be sure and tell you is to find out about Our State trips, North Carolina, America, and internationally, please sign up for our travel club newsletter. Online, ourstate.com/newsletter, and I have a sheet about it. Scroll down until you get to the Our State Travel Club newsletter and sign up. Simple as that. And I have a little sheet if you want some notes to be able to do that. So would love for you to come with us sometime.
Any other questions? Got a question here?
Yes.
Not a question, really. You were talking about Home Moravian Church. Talk about the Easter sunrise service that draws 30, 40, 50, 60,000 people for sunrise service in the square at Old Salem. While you talk about that. And talk also about Boone, Blowing Rock, Banner Elk area.
There are so many areas I left out, it's not even funny. I mean, you can go on and on. Yeah. Blowing Rock is a wonderful place to visit. There is actually a Blowing Rock, where there's an old Indian legend that there was a couple and their parents wouldn't allow them to be together, so I believe it was the man who jumped off, and he jumped off, but then he blew back, and So you can go up to the Blowing Rock in the town of Blowing Rock. Don't try that. There is no proven that that's true, but yeah, thank you for bringing that area up. We love Blowing Rock and Boone. And Home Moravian Church, yeah, their Easter sunrise service, I think they start at like 4 o'clock. They have bands that are in different parts of the city, and they play like a big trombone, and they all come in singing, they're not singing, they're playing the same songs, and then they end up right at sunrise at that cemetery or at Home Moravian Church, and that's a huge tradition. You're right. Thank you.
Can you tell me something about dark sky parks in North Carolina? Do you have any trips there? It's hard to go solo middle of the night to see the stars, so would really like you to have an arranged, safe trip for dark sky.
She's asking about dark skies. That's what you probably all know what that is, where it's really dark so you can see the stars. We don't have any trips planned for that sort of thing. There's in the magazine or online, you can look up dark skies in North Carolina. I don't have a list with me, but that might be something for us to look into. Yep, it is hard to find these dark places by yourself. It'd be nice to have a meeting place, and maybe that's a trip for your group. Put it together, a dark star. Interesting. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate that suggestion, and we've given a lot to you, but we still want to take something back. So if you have any ideas for an upcoming event for I Love North Carolina, just let us know. We do have somebody that we're trying to search out that's going to give us history of North Carolina and specifically in this area. That's going to come and talk. But if you have any suggestions of, have you heard places on the east or on the west side of the state that we can discover? But the list I'm providing is things you can do as a date day and just in this area. So give us your suggestions. And not sure, is this worth going on to having another event? Hope so. Anyway, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you all for having me. Thank you, Larry.